I just wanted to do something unique and I wanted to help somebody. So I did this little contest called Bootstrap Boost, where basically I said like I would pick one startup or founder to help them build their MVP, and I'd work for free for them for 40 hours. And so I did this contest, put it up on Twitter, and I had like 120 people sign up for that in 24 hours. From just doing that, I think I grew like 500 or 600 followers on Twitter
Wow.
in a couple of days, trying to find things like that that kind of grow your credibility, kind of prove to people that that there's a reason to see what you have to say. And I think that can work pretty well.
Welcome, everybody. This is Indie Worldwide. You're in the right place. We have with us today Noah Bragg for a Q&A. Noah's built Potion.so on Twitter, done a whole lot of building in public on Twitter, so we're going to be asking him questions. So Noah, welcome to Indie Worldwide. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This will be fun.
I'll start with a little self-introduction. What is Potion.so and what you doing on Twitter?
Yeah, so I started Potion around 6-ish months ago, and Potion is a website builder that's built on top of Notion. So if you don't know Notion, is a kind of note-taking app, project management kind of app that you can kind of build all your content in there, and then Potion takes that content, kind of re-renders it as a website. So it's optimized to be a website, and then you can kind of customize things on top of that. So yeah, I've been building in public a lot, kind of from the beginning, and so I've had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
What does it mean to build in public, at least from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there's lots of people do it in different ways, which I think is cool. Is like you can bring your own personality to it. But I think the main important thing is just to like be transparent, to really like share what's going on behind the scenes, and try to not just show like only the highlights, because I think that can happen a lot, and that's not giving a real picture then. So I really try to be transparent and kind of show the ups and downs, and then just trying to share things that I'm learning along the way, because that's really what's valuable for other people, is to hear the things that are valuable that you've found kind of along your journey. And so just trying to share those things, or sharing like the decision points, the things that worked, things that didn't. And so that's what I try to do, and I'm not perfect at it, but yeah, that's the goal.
Do you have some kind of strategy you're following? What's your modus operandi when it comes to doing the build in public stuff?
That's a big word that I've not heard before, but I'm guessing it has something.
How do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, so it's really just kind of whatever comes to top of mind, and it's really been through kind of just a process of learning kind of what people enjoy hearing, what they don't, what's valuable, what's not. And so I don't necessarily have like a great strategy other than just like what I feel like makes sense, like what I know is valuable information to share. Just like decision points and struggles or little wins. And I've just found over time that like just from building in public, you start to get some feedback from people, that this is the stuff that's interesting to them or not. And so you kind of start to learn like what things make sense. So I think like really the best way is just to just start, and just start learning along the way. Because really, I'm guessing it's going to look different for everybody too, because it's kind of built into like on top of your personality and just like how each of us does things differently, and that's what makes it interesting, right? Because everyone does things in different ways, so you can kind of learn something new from everybody that's building out there, and so that's kind of the beauty of it.
What was your motivation personally to start building in public?
Yeah, so I started building in public in some ways on my podcast. I have a podcast called Product Journey, where me and my co-host just kind of shared week to week what we were working on our side businesses. And yeah, so that was kind of the start of it, because we were just kind of sharing the decision points, what was working, what wasn't, kind of what we were working on. And then I started to do more and more of that on Twitter. And I really found that, people that like following Build in Public are other founders, other creators, other makers. And
Mm.
so when I basically landed on that I wanted to build Potion, it just made a lot of sense to me that, like, okay, maybe I'll actually put more effort into the Build in Public, because it kind of, like, those two potential, like the potential customer and the Build in Public kind of community kind of mesh to where it makes sense to spend the time. Where,
Mhm.
if I was building some other product for some very, different niche that people don't really care about the behind the scenes, then, it's probably not worth the time. And so I just kind of saw that, like, okay, this has kind of worked for me in the past. I enjoy doing it. And yeah, that's really one of the main things. I just think it's a lot of fun. And so that's when, yeah, I just decided to really go in more for the Build in Public and really do that.
Did you have much of a Twitter audience when you started in?
Um, so let's see. So I started doing stuff on Twitter a little over 2 years ago, and it was really slow at the beginning, as probably most of
Mhm.
you would know that's trying to build an audience on Twitter. Um, and I think when Potion started, I was around maybe 1,000 followers. And so that's when I kind of did that, and the building in public. That's when, like, things started to grow more on Twitter. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what that looked like.
Do you think you need to have like 1,000 or 5,000 for it to be effective, or could you start with like 0?
um, I think I think you can start with zero, because I mean you got to start somewhere, and I don't know. It also seems like it's a little harder maybe to do the build in public thing now too, just because I feel like it's like the cool thing now, so it's like probably a little more crowded and harder to get started doing it that way.
Mhm.
But I mean, everyone can have like a unique take on things and a unique way to do things, and I think that's definitely an important part of the build in public now, is like being unique, with what you're doing. And so, yeah, I think you can start at any time. Obviously, starting out, they're not going to have many people seeing what you're up to, and so it might just take a bit of time. Like, I think it does take a lot of time to kind of get things rolling. And
Yeah.
so I think really the main thing there is building credibility.
Mm.
And so that's what I try to do kind of earlier on, that seemed to help a little bit as well, is like, if you can build credibility, which is, give people a reason for why they should be listening to you. And a lot of that probably is you doing things behind the scenes that isn't on Twitter, like doing interesting things in life, and then just
Mm.
sharing some of those things. Like, that's probably almost a better way, at least in my opinion, to like start building that audience than just tweeting out all the time. Um, and so, yeah, I think like start trying to find ways to build up that credibility, doing things that are unique early on, I think can probably help a lot. So, like, an example, I think this was when I had maybe around like 500 followers on Twitter. I I just wanted to do something unique, and I wanted to help somebody. So I did this little contest called Bootstrap Boost, where basically I said, like, I would pick one startup or founder to help them build their MVP, and I'd work for free for them for 40 hours. And so I did this
Mm.
contest, put it up on Twitter, and I had like 120 people sign up for that in 24 hours. And then I interviewed 5 of the companies that I thought were cool, and then I picked one, and then I kind of built in public, showing what I was working on for them. And that was kind of like a first, like, kind of a unique thing. That's like, okay, that's a little weird. It's also not normal to just like give your time away like that.
Yeah.
But it gave some credibility, because people saw that I was like genuine and like trying to give value to people. So I think from just doing that, I think I grew like 500 or 600 followers on Twitter
Wow.
in a couple of days. And so that was like a first little, like, kind of unique thing that worked. And so I think, yeah, just trying to find things like that that kind of grow your credibility, kind of prove to people that, like, that there's a reason to see what you have to say. And I think that can work pretty well.
Yeah, I think you did a great job branding that as well. Like, if you had just done it without the branding, I'm sure it would have still done well, but having a cool name for it, like Bootstrap Boost, with a nice little alliteration, I feel like helps
Yeah.
people key on it, right? Makes it more shareable.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that? Where'd that idea come from?
So I think, yeah, so part of that was I was in between ideas myself. I had just decided I was going to move on from my earlier like side business support man, and I was looking for another idea. And I thought that one, I just wanted to help somebody. And now that I didn't have a project I was working on, I was like, okay, this is a good time to do that. And then I also thought that maybe this would just help me start to think of ideas because I thought maybe I'd look across lots of applications of different businesses and what they were doing, and thought that would help spark an idea. Funnily enough, I think I came up with the idea that I was going to do Potion like a day before the I launched the Bootstrap Boost thing, and so I didn't necessarily need it for that. But um, yeah, and then I ended up having to do the 40 hours in the midst
Right.
of me trying to build Potion. But it
How'd
worked
that go?
out.
Yeah.
It worked out. I mean, I basically just blocked off a full week where I was like, all right, I'm just not going to work on Potion at all. And I'm just going to do this because I said I was going to do this. So I'm going to keep to my word. So, yep.
Yeah, I guess that's the dangerous part about doing things in public is then the public holds you accountable for the things you said you would do.
Exactly. Which, is a good thing.
Yeah, public accountability. Keep you on task,
Yep.
hypothetically. So is Twitter your main and only way of marketing your startup, or do you combine it with other marketing channels?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been the main thing that's kind of worked really well.
Hmm.
I've done some stuff on YouTube that hasn't really been a big marketing channel. Really, it's more just been almost for myself or for other makers to kind of see the behind the process as well. So I've done a little building in public kind of stuff there on YouTube as well. Um, yeah, I mean, there's like a Notion community that I kind of hang out in, and so I've gotten some customers from there. There's a Facebook group that I've gotten some customers from, and then really a lot of customers kind of came when I did a product hunt launch, and so that's where probably like and most of that word of mouth is probably on Twitter, so kind of the build in public was helpful as well there. And so yeah, that's really where a lot of the customers have come from.
Just from Twitter.
Yeah, and I think that's the main benefit really of build in public is like it kind of
Hmm.
gives an actual kind of personality to you as a creator, and people want to help. Like people when people see your story and they kind of see the backstory of how you're doing this and the decisions you're making, and they're kind of following along, and that's hopefully valuable to them. In return, they kind of want to help you if they can because they kind of have your back. And so I think that really showed when I did the product hunt launch, because a lot of people from Twitter that's kind of seen what I was up to went and supported the product hunt launch, and I think that's why it did so well. Was kind of like those people kind of giving back, and so that's definitely been like the huge benefit of it for me. So yeah, that's kind of how it's gone.
Do you think it makes sense for like any company to be trying to do build in public or caring about Twitter? Or is it only if you're for like makers?
I mean, I think you definitely have to look at like where do your customers hang out, and that's going to be different for every business. And so, Twitter could make sense. I don't know. It's
Hmm.
kind of hard to follow Twitter because it's like a bubble for each of us, right? Like we kind of have like
Right.
this little bubble of who we see on Twitter or on ourselves. So for me, like I'm only seeing other makers and creators and startup stuff on Twitter. I'm not in the other circles, which I hear that there's other circles, but I don't see it.
Hmm.
So I mean, it could make a lot of sense to be on Twitter for your business. But yeah, I don't really know. So I guess you kind of have to explore and see like, are my customers or my potential customers hanging out here? And if so, then it could make sense to spend a lot of time on Twitter or do the build in public kind of thing. So.
Hmm. Danny, welcome. Feel free to ask.
All right. I was just wondering, how much time do you spend on Twitter, and more important, how do you how do you not get lost in it and stop working on what you actually have to work on and stuff? And also, is this a sock on your mic?
Yes, this is a sock. Yeah, this sock has gotten a lot of notices on Twitter, especially because it's a sock. I don't know. It's my pop filter. Uh, I spend probably too much time on Twitter, and I've been, because you're right, it can be really hard, because it's also Twitter. They want you to stay on Twitter, and so it can become a waste of time. And so I've been trying to get better about that. I do like, I think it's valuable to some extent to like kind of stay up to date with like what's going on in your community. So like for me, the community of like Notion, and I can do that through Twitter pretty well. Um, and it's kind of a weird thing where it's like it's kind of randomly throughout the day. Probably a lot of us are like this, like, and that's probably not good because you're breaking up your schedule into like sections. And so something I just started doing, I think like a couple weeks ago to try to get better at this, is I got this app called Cold Turkey. It's only $40. It's a one-time thing, but basically you can block all these different websites and apps on your computer. And so I create like blocks throughout the day where I block Twitter and I block other apps. I'll even like block my support queue, so that I can like have focus time where I'm working on my product and focusing on the product. And that's been really helpful, because then it's like it just doesn't let me go on Twitter. And so yeah, I'm trying to kind of work with that to kind of, what I'd like to do is get it around to where maybe I'm only going on Twitter like near the beginning of the day, because that's when I usually like post some stuff, and then like the end of the day to kind of like check things and stuff, so that I'm not like checking it over and over again, because yeah, that definitely can be a problem.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Danny. Right, next up we got Janet. Go for it, Janet.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I know, good to meet you in person,
Hey, yeah,
follower,
good to see you.
and also the sock. I'm glad that you brought it up. Curious about your kind of experience with how you decided to work on Support Man and then also on Potion. And then it was interesting to hear you said that you had that like middle phase of figuring out what you wanted to do next. Curious how you approached that, and did you use build in public as like a way of testing different ideas?
Yeah, good question. So it's kind of a long story in some ways, because I feel like so I've been building different like projects and things probably like the last 5 years. I always have some like side business I'm doing while I have like my day job or whatever. And I've like just started to kind of grow like almost like a requirements list for my business ideas, like just like learning things that I like, things that are important to me, or things that I found that like I'm not good at or am good at. So like one thing, for example, is like I'm not a marketer by trade. So like I started to kind of look at ideas where I wouldn't have to just like do tons of marketing, um, to be able to get the business to work. So like that's one thing. I found that I really care about who my customer is, because I've had like some businesses in the past where like some random idea, and then you like build something for people that you don't really know, and you don't necessarily even know that you like hanging out with them. And so I just kind of found that like I really care about the people I'm serving, because that's what makes kind of the business fun, is like you're talking with these people and figuring out their problems all the time. And so that was like another important thing. So I kind of just started to build this list of like requirements for my business ideas. And another one of those was like a business idea that a solo entrepreneur can do, but that because I think there's lots of different ideas where it could be so ambitious that it might be hard for you to take on by yourself. And like I know for myself, like I want to build a small scale online business, something that I can do at least by myself, maybe a small team or something. And so I think there's ideas that fit better into that category. And so yeah, I kind of built this kind of like structure of what I'm looking for. And one of the main things with that was like building on top of other platforms, because users don't have to like figure out a whole new tool or solution when they are already, they're already used to using the platform. Maybe your tool is just like kind of an add-on to that, where it helps with the problem they already have, but it's not like they're having to learn a whole new workflow. And so that was kind of a sweet spot that I found like I really want to build on top of platforms. Like I think it's advantageous to solo entrepreneurs and indie hackers. And so that's when I did the support man thing, because that was built on top of Intercom. And so yeah, then really was just like looking at what other platforms could I build on. And Notion really came to mind because Notion was something I'd used at the time for a year or so, and I really liked the product myself. And I could just see like the momentum, kind of like a wave growing around Notion of just like people love Notion. They talk about it all the time on Twitter. That I guess was kind of another benefit of building or just being on Twitter, just like seeing that, being around to see kind of what people are talking about. And so then I just started to look at ideas that made sense on Notion that fit with my kind of potential customer that I wanted to serve. And so that's why I was trying to like kind of put those things together. But then also like, I think especially for indie hackers, like building solutions for people that they're already looking for, like not trying to just like do something brand new, a new thing. Like I think that's more for like startups to do, or people with venture capital and a lot of money and marketing power. So like just like I try to see like what are people already trying to do, what do they already want to do, and then how can I help them do that better. And so that's really kind of what led me to Potion, because there's a lot of people that wanted to create websites on Notion. There was a lot of people already doing that in like this like weird like hard way where you had to know some code and kind of how to configure some things to be able to do it. And then there was already starting to be some competitors. So I could kind of see the demand basically that was there. So that's kind of a long answer to your question. Hopefully I answered it. I think you also did ask about like the build in public part of that. I don't think I didn't. I think I came up with the idea and I kind of did all that research on my own before kind of deciding like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I started doing the build in public. I didn't, I guess like, I think that is really smart though to do, like, kind of do the build in public to almost help you validate your idea. So I didn't necessarily do that, but I think that's a good idea. At the same time, have to be careful with, because you never know like who you're interacting with on Twitter. Like, are they the right potential customer that you want to be listening to or not? So just making sure that's good. But yeah, I think that is a smart way to go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Brian in the chat had a question. It's kind of similar to what Danny covered. So maybe we'll skip to the end of it, which is for your YouTube videos. Are you doing any extra time after you record on the editing, or is it just like record and throw it up there?
Yeah, so I've been using a tool called ScreenFlow, it's a really cool editing tool. I think it's like $120, $140 one-time thing. But it really makes it easy to kind of make some quick edits for like panning and zooming in. And so I think it's like great for like product kind of videos, which is mostly what I'm doing, where I'm like showing what I'm working on and showing off some new feature I built or something like that. And you can kind of zoom in and kind of show it off. And so there is a little bit of edit, but I'm mostly, I'm making like 2-minute and 20-second videos because that's all that fits on Twitter. And so then I repost that on YouTube. And so, obviously it doesn't take too long to record those. And then the editing is maybe another 10-15 minutes to kind of add some of those little things. So it's a pretty quick process, and I don't worry too much about like how professional it looks and how amazing like videos or the content that I'm sharing is. Like, I'm mostly just trying to, as quickly as I can, share something or do something, because it's kind of a secondary fact that gives it a little more authenticity as well. Like, it's not like I'm making like these professional videos and stuff. It's more just kind of showing the actual what's going on. So I think that's kind of fine with the build in public as well. So it's not too much extra time, but yeah, there's a little bit there. I have thought of, and I think who you had on before me with the build in public stuff, like doing some streaming or something like that. I think that would be kind of fun. I've considered maybe doing something like that.
Rockstar, you should hit him up. I'm sure he'd love to have you on as a guest on his stream. Do you get more views on when you post on Twitter or when you post on YouTube later?
So mostly on Twitter because that's where I have a bigger following. I think I have only like 200 subscribers on YouTube, and that's slowly growing. But like it says, like I'll get, I don't know, somewhere from like 500 to 1,000 views on like a little video on Twitter, and I don't know. It's always hard to know like how much of that means that those people are watching. They could just saw a couple of seconds on Twitter, but then on YouTube, I'll like repost those and maybe get like 30 to 50 views or something like that.
You'd mentioned before that it's nice to share the low moments as well as the high moments on Twitter. I wonder if you could share, like, how do you make a low moment shareable? And do you see the same kind of engagement on those low moments as you do on the, like, hey, we just had a big launch kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it is hard because, yeah, like you're saying, the low moments don't get shared the same way, because people like to, share and be excited about when good things happen, which makes sense. But it does kind of make, social media or Twitter kind of become more of a highlight reel, which, um, you know, there's problems with that, I think. So I, I don't know. I haven't found a great way to get around that. One of the things I try to do, and this is probably how I share most of like any low moment, is just like share a problem that I'm running into and probably like ask for help. Be like, has anyone seen this, or how would you handle this? And then it's like there's more engagement there because then there's something for people to do with it. Like they can reply to it, give back, like give some feedback, and which is also like helpful to me, which is great. But it also is it turns something that's maybe a low and could possibly turn it into like a learning moment for everyone that comes across that tweet to kind of see how people are solving this. So I think that's a good way to go about it.
Nice. And final question, what are your goals for Potion? So you're about 6 months in. What do you want to be at in a year?
I just made a goal that I want to hit 5,000 MRR by the end of the year. So I have 5 months to do that. Right now, I'm just about at 2,300 MRR. And so, yeah, I think to do that, I'd have to grow like $140 in MRR a week. And so, but more recently, I've been closer to like $100 a week or something like that. So I tried to pick a goal that's like, not too hard, but it's hopefully reachable. I don't want to just like make myself disappointed, but something I can kind of reach for a little bit. So we'll see if I get there. But that's kind of the goal, and still figuring out how I'm gonna get there. So there's a lot to learn and to do.
Right on. I've been having fun following you on Twitter. I think you've got one of the best kind of build in public Twitters out there.
Thanks. I
So
appreciate that.
I hope you win. I hope you get there.